Hello and welcome to this edition of Life Made Easier, Living from the Inside Out.
Hello and welcome to Life Made Easier podcast. My name is Leslie Pesiak. It is such a pleasure to have you join us today on this episode. Today, I am really excited to share this guest. He's one of these people that just gives and gives and gives. And I think that he's learned within himself the art of giving actually fills him up when he's able to give in the way that fulfills him. So I think that there's a way that we all can give and we drain, but then we can also give and it fills us up. And I think that this guest today is one of the perfect examples of being able to give that fills us up. I'm talking about David Nordell. And Mr. Nordell is a retired Air Force Command Chief Master Sergeant, and he has been for over 30 years. He's also a nurse. He works with the military of transitioning. He helps a lot of the military people with PTSD and overcoming and probably transitioning back into civilian life. And he was actually a medic in these when he was serving. And he served in Saudi Arabia, Somalia, South America, Iraq, Iran, Japan, and Hungary. I'm sure many other places that he might not be able to really talk about. One of the things that I think is really fascinating, not only about David, but also about other people that are in the military, these young men go in at a very early age, say 19. And one of the things that I want to talk to him about, we hear a lot of them coming back and they're just never the same. They're never the same. And this is my greatest passion where he's concerned. This is what drew me to him, is his desire and his passion to help these men transition back into civilian lifestyle. I know a lot of them come with PTSD, a lot of different things. And I just know that this episode is going to be one of the best episodes that so far we've had, and I think that it's really going to help a lot of people. So please help me welcome David Nordell to this issue on Life Made Easier podcast. Hey, David, how are you?
So no pressure, right?
Well,
it just has to be the best podcast. I mean, you just threw it all out there. That's great.
I know it's going to be great because I've been excited about this since we met. When did we meet? March, I think it was in the first part of March, and now we're in like the beginning of May. So I've really been looking forward to this one a great deal. So David, first of all, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so you have to be careful when you ask a military guy.
Let's start in your
story,
because
and it all starts kind of at the end, at the beginning, right?
Right.
So, no, I mean, I grew up in rural Northern California in a dairy farming community, basically on a dairy farm and in farming. So everything that comes along with that, and as you can imagine, hard work and those kind of things. And I tell people, and in my writings, I use the farm as an example of life because everything's going on the farm. You have life and death and ups and downs and Mother Nature and fences torn down and, and bumper crops and there's just there's times to celebrate. There's times that you need to have grit and resilience and you need to work through things. And a lot of it can be extremely lonely. And it requires a certain level of self-motivation, self-leadership, and then leading others too, So there's a lot there. Always wanted to go in the military. The Navy was my first choice. It's a long story as to why I ended up in the Air Force, but I wanted to go in the Navy and be a plumber. And really long story short, because we'll talk a little bit probably about attitude and how you approach things, but, the Navy recruiter on a certain day had a bad attitude and the Air Force guy didn't, and it changed my whole trajectory. The plumber thing was, you always have people in your family that you look at and you say, hey, I could probably follow in those footsteps and do quite well. And I had an older cousin that was doing that, and I thought that might be a good thing. The Air Force decided I needed to go into medicine. And if you'd have told me through high school and growing up that I would have any involvement in medicine or taking care of people, I probably would have. Maybe I didn't see myself that way, but somebody did. Anyway, it was the best thing that ever happened. I had a natural aptitude for it. And this is where, if you go back to the farm, as I talked to a friend of mine that I grew up with that actually lives here in Billings with me in Montana. which is odd after all these years to run into somebody you grew up with. But I was asking him about, our leadership styles and how we approach things. And he's in a leadership, environment now. And he said, Dave, from the time that we were responsible for feeding animals, picking crops, whatever we were doing, from the time we were responsible for anything, it was never about us. The animals ate first. You didn't go in the house and have dinner if the feeding wasn't done. You didn't go in the house and have dinner if you had a sick animal. You didn't go in the house and have dinner if the animals were going to be in danger because there was a fence down. You did all of that stuff first, which means that you were always putting something else, person or, in this case, animals, first. And when you take that out in the world, you just don't leave all that. It's just something that doesn't go away. And in God's teachings, if you look at Jesus and how he walked the planet, it's very important to notice that he found a way to give continuously, even when he was spreading his message. And I kind of laugh when we do Bible study, and I am not a theologian, and I am not super duper steeped in the Bible where I can just rattle off verses. I know a few, but I sit with men that are very, very knowledgeable on this stuff. And when you look at the Bible, if you think that the Bible even gives us the ability to lament. If you think that Jesus didn't lament, if Jesus didn't shake his fist at the sky, if Jesus didn't lose his patience, all that stuff is kind of there. But there's a lot of teachings on how to kind of navigate. So that stuff all aligned. And, you get out there and you start taking care of people. My first job in the Air Force was delivering babies, which when you grow up on a farm, that's not too much of a transition. You see that all the time. It just happens to be the human piece of it.
To deliver
Sure.
human babies.
Yeah, when you have people and parents attached to it, it is different. Yeah,
Right.
so it's a big deal. So, through that, I put myself through nursing school and did shock trauma. I'm an ER nurse, emergency room nurse. And, that led me, through my military career as a medic. And, obviously you talked about some of the places I've been and the contingency / combat time that I did. And those all shape you and form you. After 30 years of that, and being married to my wife now, we've been married almost 33 years and raised a couple of boys, and you go through all of that. The one thing is that, life, especially military life, which we'll get to when you talk about transition, it really microwaves you. If you put anything in the microwave, when you pull it out, odds are it looks the same. You put cheese in there, it looks different. But if you put a hot dog or something in a microwave, it looks the same when you take it out, except it's not.
If you put a hot dog in the landfill, 30 years later, you take it out, it looks the same.
Well, yeah. Well, there you go. But the microwave has changed the DNA.
Right.
And so is the landfill, actually. The microwave, the hot dog isn't the same, even though it looks the same.
Right.
And so when your DNA is changed, that kind of shapes you into who you are after those foundational things, right? We all come with our morals and our foundational sets and stuff we get from our parents and our loved ones and our communities and our churches and those type of things. We all come with that. And those are foundational things. Those are rocks that are built foundationally. But as we navigate life, we change. And when we change, a lot of times there's no going back. It is what it is. If somebody takes an axe and chops off your arm, you're not going to have an arm. You might have something that looks like an arm or a prosthesis, but that arm is not coming back. And so, as life does that to us too, we have certain things that are joyous, successful things in life that changes, and we have major tragedies in life that changes, life and death and relationships and all those type of things. So, how do you get through that? Well, you gotta have good teams. You gotta have good people around you. You gotta choose, as your parents would say, you gotta choose your friends right, and then you need to manage your inner circle. And in there comes the giving back piece, right? The stuff that you talked about. And so, in the military, we call ourselves brothers and sisters. 500 or 600 a day transitioning back to civilian life, and it is a huge chasm of a gap. And so, how do you make that better? How do you teach people? The passion is teach employers about the phenomenon of military transition, the microwave thing that I talked to you about, and then show them how to create an environment where when a veteran shows up in a work environment, they actually can find the things that they left all in one day. And those things are purpose and camaraderie and team and values and structure And all the things that you had on one day, the next day you don't have any of those. And you don't have your battle buddies, you don't have your wingmen, and you don't have your shipmates. When you lose those things, it can be tough. Yeah, so there's a little bit about me and some precursors to, I'm sure, some of the stuff that we're going to talk about. The giving piece is, I would say, for the most part, it's a blessing, but at times it can be a curse, and we can talk a little bit more about that and some of the challenges that go along with that. Right up to the point where when people identify you as a giver, it sets you up for being taken advantage of.
Huge.
So in life, when you hear all the cliche things in life that sends you a bunch of lemons, make lemonade, and those type of things, it's really about victimhood and ownership. And something happens to you, especially if it's negative, PTSD, right? Things you can't unsee, unhear, and unsmell, or moral injury, which we can talk more about. When life deals you these blows, you immediately have two choices. The easy choice and the natural default is to become a victim. They did that to me. If it wasn't for, the man, the system, the situation, the service, if it wasn't for the Army or the Navy, the Air Force, or, and you can shake your fist at that and you can be a victim. And as long as you're a victim, you're really a setup to get more ill. And I say more ill in a way of not using your situation to normalize and then to get better, right? To build in those resilient pieces.
I want to just interject here for
Sure.
a minute, because I think that it just came to my mind that one of the things that was so frustrating for me on my healing journey was, and this victimhood, right? You're talking about this victimhood. And I think that, and I'm just going to be honest, when I would go to therapy, and many of us do, right? You go and then you feel better, right? You made peace with wherever you were at that time. But then it seems like a few months later or a few years later, sometime in the future, you feel like it just starts bubbling up again. And there's certain instances when it comes bubbling up again. And honestly, one of the things that when God hit my reset button and I had this opportunity to start over on my second life, that's what I call it. I realized that as I was looking back at, oh God, I've been through therapy so much, I should be like a genius, a superhuman healed person. But I did realize that each and every time when I went to therapy, it either blamed me and I had to take responsibility for something that really wasn't mine, or I was blaming another person. Therapy never allowed for there to be a complete and utter resolution. There was always something in there that blamed me, blamed another person, that kept us connected. And I wanted peace, right? I wanted to make peace with that stuff. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are, because yes, there is that, the victim mentality. And I think a lot of us take that on when we know that perhaps maybe we should have done something different. Rather, it's because society told us to, or our inner knowing told us to, or that we're holding something against another person that we just can't let go of. We're blaming them, we're holding them accountable, it's their fault kind of thing, right? And this is where I learned within myself through this whole process. I was so tired of that aspect, and I just decided I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to live it that way. I'm not going to process it that way. And then I started, doing things differently within myself. And now I look at it and I think, you know what? And even within myself, it's like after it was all over, it's like, Leslie, you learned what healing forward's all about. That little inner voice inside of me, you know what inner healing's all about. And I thought, okay, but it's healing forward, right? It was healing forward. That's when I learned healing forward. So that's something that I think is really, really important, so that there's not, where we don't feel guilty, where we're not holding things against another person or situation to set us free, right? Just to set us free. That other person might have been an ass, right? They might have really deserved us to hold this, but we deserve more than to hold stuff against people, because it just keeps us frustrated. And so that's where I wanted to just share.
There's a couple things to unpack there. One is, I write about the fact that children know everything, just ask them. there's a few things that are grotesquely honest in this world. A couple of them are children and alcoholics, drunks. Whatever comes out of their mouth tends to be grossly honest and unfiltered, and it can hurt feelings sometimes. But it can also make you kind of be introspective. If you have high emotional intelligence and you actually hear, you can be introspective. But the one magical thing about it is if you watch children and something goes wrong, watch a video where there's 3 kids and one of them hits a baseball that goes through a window. They all run. In fact, they run in different directions. Right? And as they're running, they're making up in their mind what the story is. 2 of them are glad that they didn't swing the bat. So it's automatically they're saying it's not my fault. Even though they pitched it, even though that they were playing in the game, even though that they picked the spot where they shouldn't have. Right? And the one that is swinging the bat is hoping that, or is rationalizing how the other 2 are involved at a level that makes it just as significant as him hitting it with the ball, because misery loves company. And the reason I tell you that, that's standard. It's the way we operate because we don't want to be in trouble, right? And when we're in trouble, our default is to lie. Our default is to deflect, right? And our default is to look for company. Find somebody that's just as miserable or is in this with me. Makes it easier. Just flat makes it easier. Human nature. Well, think about when you have stuff that's going on personally. You've made bad decisions, or life just dealt you, just a really, really rash blow. You have ways that you have to approach that. High emotionally intelligent people will sit back and ponder it for a minute, have some self-awareness, and then draw some lines. And at some level, you have to take responsibility. Most don't. And when you live in this environment where you don't have self-awareness, my therapist always tells me, you must be the most self-aware male on the face of the planet. The reason that she says that is because when we're talking about things that I struggle with, PTSD is part of it. Some of it's my relationship with my mother, which I think we all can go back to that and find something. When I talk through it, I never talk about how I feel. I talk about what I know. And the thing is that I'm not doing anything novel. Dave's not special. Dave's just at a point now where he can articulate out loud on the front end. Here's where I'm at. Here's what I own. Here's what I'm responsible for. Here's the struggles that I have. Here's the things that I know what I need to be doing. However, I'm still not doing them.
David, how can you say that when your therapist said you are the most self-aware man I know? And then you look at me and you say, but I'm not special. This is how I do things, which is completely abnormal from the way normal people do things. So I think that I'm bringing this to your attention because I think that you know, sometimes we really need to look at ourselves and say, yeah, I'm really all that. And celebrate ourselves, right? I really have done the work. I've done the work, and I deserve to recognize myself and my efforts because I did this work. And I'm proud of myself, and you can get to teach it to other people. I just want you to take credit.
I appreciate that. I guess what I'm saying is that if you're not there, you can be there.
Right.
When I say that I'm not special, it doesn't mean that I had some superpower that made me get to that point. It was work.
Right. It
took, and you had to have help.
Right.
To get there. Right.
Right.
And so these are the things. This is the whole transition. I'm the kid that if I broke the window, I ran, but I ran home and I told my mom I broke a window. And she goes, "Did you break the window? Who broke the window?" "Well, Billy hit the ball, but I pitched it." You know, my mom would have come to the conclusion that you all broke the window, so it's, it's 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, fix the window. That's just the way it is. So that has to do some of it with my values. But the other piece of that is, and I guess the deeper conversation is, if you're down and out, go talk to homeless people. I do it all the time. When I can find them and they're lucid, I talk to them all the time. If you talk to homeless people, most of them had a tipping point in their life, and they are in one of 2 states. They either understand that they're where they're at because of their actions, and they're trying to do something about it, like a kid that I met in Rapid City last year, in fact, almost this time last year, trying to make lemons out of lemonade, or lemonade out of lemons. Or you have people that tell you the 10,000 reasons why their uncle screwed them over, their cousin didn't do this, the car broke down, I'm out of a job, all of these kind of things. And you go, if you follow that up with, well, why are you out of a job? And they're honest with you. Well, I showed up to work, I was drunk. I stole money out of the cash register. Well, don't do that. Stop. That's you. You own that. You own that. So to get better, you have to recognize this is Alcoholics Anonymous. Hi, I'm Dave Nordell, and I'm an alcoholic. If you don't say that out loud and believe it, then you're not going to get better.
Right.
And so the next level of that, I guess what I was explaining about self-awareness, the next level of that is, how do you take, especially internal problems, internal struggles, anything in life, leadership, giving back, where do you spend your time? Where do you spend your money? Who do you invest in? How do you keep from being angry? How do you live a godly life? That's hard. It's impossible, actually. That's why he gives us all this room to sin. How do you live it? When you flip the whole model on its head, and when the ball goes through the window, you set the bat down and you start walking towards the house to go knock on the door to say it. Think about how much easier that is.
It's holding yourself accountable.
What? Well, it's self-awareness. Think about how much easier it is to go, oh, I'm here. I need to put the bat down. I need to go knock on the door. I need to tell the person, we were playing ball. I hit the ball through your window. How can I fix it? Right? Think about, to most people, they're like, oh, that's terrible. I don't, what am I going to do? 99 out of every 100 people, 99.9 out of every 100 people are not going to hit you, throw you off the porch, call the cops, or do anything else. They're going to work the problem with you if you're honest and you're forthright. So that even gets easier. But for some reason, when we have issues in our lives, the default is to run, figuratively and literally. And while you're running, you're thinking about who else's fault it is and all of the other things. Listen to people that are truly hurting, that are in true victimhood. They never, ever, ever realign their situation with them. Their mom, their dad, their boss, their bank, their husband, their wife, their kid, their car, all of it, their lack of money, their bank account. Somebody wronged me. And they're shaking their fist at the sky. And usually while they're shaking their fist at the sky, they've got something else in their other hand that's a numbing gauge, whatever that is. Drugs, alcohol, sex, whatever it is. These are all temporary bastions of pain relief that people run to. And quite frankly, just run to the problem. Take it on. Own it. So PTSD, moral injury, we can talk about moral injury in depth because there's a lot of moral injury out in the world, well beyond the military. Those things, boy, you can have 1,000 reasons. The system, the service, my job, the patient, the whatever. You can even people that have PTSD and moral injury from like sexual assault, which are mainly females, but there's men. If you take sexual assault for an example, people that heal and move forward in life with sexual assault, own it. I am a victim of sexual assault. This is what happened to me. It's a permanence in me. There's things that will happen that I can't unsee, unhear, and unsmell, and I'm going to have triggers with that. And you can own that and understand what that is and use that energy in some form of positive way each and every time that it sneaks up on you. Or you can just be mad. And I would tell you, the first, look at somebody when you catch them in a lie. What do? They get mad. They start yelling at you.
Yeah, they somehow make it out to be your fault.
Gaslighting. And this is the new word, right? Gaslighting. Don't gaslight me. Well, when people are wrong or they're backed into a corner, they tend to gaslight. They flip it all around and all of a sudden start, if I told you in the military, it's great. If you walk up to somebody in the military and go, hey, your button's unbuttoned, or you pick out a uniform violation because they're not in standards. Do you think that they fix that right away? Heck no. They look at your uniform. They look at every part of your uniform because they're getting ready to tell you what's wrong with you.
Right.
They're going to deflect instead of just saying thank you and buttoning up the button and moving on. Just own it.
Right.
Just own it.
Right.
And things get so much easier. And so buttoning a button on a shirt is one thing. Owning sexual assault trauma, owning moral injury from a combat zone, owning PTSD, not easy to make friends with.
No, it's not. It's really tough. That's one of the things that I did when God hit that reset button. And this is interesting because this isn't a place where we went, but it's relating to the same thing. But I remember I just didn't want to do the traditional blame and shame thing, right? And I said, I'm really done with this. I need peace. Like I was looking for that inner peace. And I remember looking at the things where I felt like I had wronged myself and others, right? That this is all it is. I either wronged myself or I wronged the other person because nobody did anything to me. I did it all to myself, right? First, I looked at it that way. I said, I'm not blaming or shaming anybody. I did this to myself. But I went to all the people that I hurt. And I apologized. I held myself accountable and I apologized for it. That I could remember. It's not like I dug up stuff from the past, right? If something came to mind, then I would, take the steps to rectify it within myself. Like, Leslie, why did you take your sister's shoes? What was it? Well, because I didn't have them, and I wanted, to have these things, and I just didn't have them, and then why didn't I just fess up then? Well, because my sister and my mom were pretty mean to me when I was growing up, and I just didn't want to put up with their crap. But I did give them back, right? But I just didn't hold myself accountable. But later on in life, like 5 or 8 years ago, I did. But I understand that. That's huge. Like when you can hold yourself accountable for things, it's like that's the process that I was talking about. That's the healing forward, right? Because when something comes rolling around in our brains, instead of blaming somebody else or taking responsibility, like seriously taking responsibility for ourselves, that's healing forward. Because when I did this, I realized that everything from the past, similar to it or connected in any way, shape, or form, started falling away. I mean, all these little domino effects just started leaving, right? That it was almost like that problem or that issue or that inner conflict kind of just just disintegrated. You know what I mean?
Well, when you're angry, you're stagnant. You use the words healing forward. That has action. Those words have action. Healing is an action word. Forward is an action word, right? If I say to you victimhood, there's no action there.
Right.
It's stagnant.
Right.
It's just in one spot. You're a victim.
Yeah.
Period. I'm a victim. You're classified. You're in a box. It has hard lines.
Yeah, because
when
you don't
say
know where to go, what to do, you're just right.
Yep, and you're stuck.
Right.
When you say healing forward, right?
Right.
What stage of healing are you in? Where are you at in your journey? Your healing journey, right? And you can say, let's use a physical ailment. Let's use, I don't know, cardiac rehab. So you had a heart attack. Where are you at? Well, I'm in cardiac rehab. Well, you know where they're at in their healing stage, right?
Right.
All the way up to, hey, I take an aspirin a day and I'm back to running marathons. That's where they're at in their healing stage from their heart attack. Where are you at? And that's all forward movement, right? All the arrows are going one way. Well, there might be little stop points where you have challenges, but that doesn't mean that that's a limitation. It means that it takes some sort of effort or adjunct to help you to heal forward. I'll challenge you on this, Leslie, because I know where you're going, and I know you want people to think about healing forward. If you truly believe that you're healing forward and you continue to do that, which is fabulous, the part of that piece that you have to talk to is, what did you have to get rid of? What did you have to add? And who the heck helped you?
I am so glad you asked that.
Because that's not an individual journey.
Oh, yes, it is. Yes, it is. And let me tell you what I did. Because I did do it individually. When I wanted other people involved in it, and I felt like I needed other people involved in it, they weren't there. They weren't there. And you know what I did? And why I can say that this is an individual journey is because all the answers came from inside of me. Now, when I when this all happened, I could not My right brain talked to my right brain, because you're medical, you understand this. My left side talked to my left side, my right side talked to my right side, but they didn't cross over, right? And when it was all said and done, I was like a 5-year-old. So I kind of had to start all over. I mean, it's really like I was given a second chance to live again. But what I started doing is, because I couldn't put these thoughts, that I couldn't form them like together, like making logic out of them, right? I started seriously paying attention to my body. What was my body feeling? If I felt tense, if I felt, you start understanding. And then I had a list of certain feelings that I would go through. I mean, it was quite a process for me. It took me 3 years to be able to function again in society. But I did not have I didn't have anyone around me. I didn't have family. I didn't have any. I had me. I had a great therapist and a team of doctors.
That's help.
And well, they
That's
did
help.
help me.
Therapist,
Right.
doctor.
They did help me. But I mean, what I'm saying is, like, the people around me, like family, friends. No,
They had to go.
They had to.
They had to go.
Everything.
That's what I said. That's what I said. What did you get rid of?
I got rid of it.
Because to heal forward, you have got to fire people.
Right.
And sometimes they look like your family. You got to fire them off your life team.
Right.
And you got to put the right people on them.
Oh my God, yes. Everybody was fired, and you know what? Actually, I didn't fire them. I think God fired them, or they took the step. I mean, to me, it was God fired them. God said, Leslie, if you would have kept going down that path, they would have destroyed you, right? But everybody, it was like, what is that when you drop water into oil and it like separates? Is that what it is?
But
everybody left. Everybody was gone. Everybody. And it was beautiful.
Let me hypothesize.
Okay.
Because they were all leeches. As long as you were down and out, they could take advantage of you. They could tell you what they wanted to tell you, and they got some sort of grotesque satisfaction out of that. Once you started to transition and heal forward, they were scared to death of you, because any involvement with you required work, affirmation, cheerleading, and those type of things. And they weren't bought into that, because they weren't bought into you. And so they left naturally, because you were not food anymore for their grotesque approach to how they deal with people. That's what you have to. You're going to be hard pressed to find a dozen people in your life that truly care about you in all aspects. It's hard.
You know, that makes a lot of sense, because, we give and we give and we give and we give, and we think that our environments are healthy. But when it comes down to it and you need something, oh God, no way. Absolutely no way. Even my husband, that I had just been married to for a few years, when this all happened to me, he just left. But he didn't not take all the great things that I ended up getting sick trying to create for, and do. And yeah, you're right. Ooh, you're right.
Yeah. So this is awareness, right? And here's the normal human reaction to that. That's my mom. That's my dad. That's my brother. That's my cousin. That's my mom and I, God rest her soul. She'll have been gone 2 years in Thanksgiving. We used to go round and round and round about this, about family, because my mother was tied to this thing that family is family. God, family, country, in that order. And you know what? For the most part, that's great grounding, and that's where you should be.
Right.
But the family piece is not all the end all, the be all. The family doesn't get to say whatever they want to say to you at your expense. The family doesn't get to take whatever they take from you at your expense. And they certainly don't get to disrespect you because you're family and whatever that they want to do. And so guess what? You're fired. And you have to fire people.
Right.
If you looked at my life team 10 years ago when I retired from the Air Force, almost 11, when I retired from the Air Force, if you looked at my life team then, and my life team now I have probably almost 100% turnover. Almost 100% turnover.
Well, you still have your wife and your kids, right? You can turn them over.
Yeah. There's I will tell you, out of my family, I have some in-laws, people that married into the family that I'm closer to. I have a couple of cousins that I've grown closer to. They're a little older than me, that I've grown closer to in my older years. But it's because they're there and we respect each other. And that stuff matters. So You can't heal forward until you do a couple of things. You have to surround yourself in a world of respect, and you have to respect yourself.
Absolutely.
Period. And until most people that are in victimhood, if you talk to them and ask them how they feel about themselves, all the words that they will use to describe themselves are really disrespectful.
Right.
It's stuff you wouldn't tell other people.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so
that's
you got to
so
get
true.
You got to get that right. And I haven't perfected this. Leslie, you talked a little bit about, going backwards to go forward, and, you go to therapists and you want this peace. There's no such thing as peace. Life is hard. And you better, Carol Lawson, who's the women's basketball coach for Duke. She did a speech called Handle Hard Better. And I listen to that occasionally. It's for the team. It was an impromptu speech. She was talking to the team. It must have been later in the year. She had some seniors graduating. And she was just flat telling them, you think it's going to get easier when the semester's over. You think it's going to get easier when you graduate with a Duke degree. No. Life is just flat hard. So if you're standing in some line waiting for the easy bus, you're going to be there forever and life's going to pass you by.
Right.
So you have to handle hard better. So you better get some tool. So when you break the window, set that bat down, walk up on the front porch, knock on the door, say, I broke the window. You'll probably find out that that's a fulfilling experience.
So don't you think that's one of those times when it makes life easier, right? When you can just truly just freaking be honest, put your morals into place, put your integrity into place, really stand up for yourself and say, you know what, regardless of what you think of me, when I knock on your door and say I broke your window, I don't know how you're going to treat me. I don't know how you're going to react to me. You could be somebody that just explodes and gets really angry, or you could be somebody that's compassionate. But what I do know for sure is when I've done something that another person didn't like in the past, they have slammed the shit out of me. And that, my friend, is what I'm talking about. Those are the people when you get them out of your life. Because if you don't have, those are the people that you just freaking pitch, right? There's no questions asked. You just get rid of them. Because if you cannot make a mistake, if you can't make a mistake, right, then you don't need them in your life. Because none of us are perfect. None of us are perfect. And we all have to give forgiveness. But it's the mistakes that we make. I'm not going to forgive my husband. I would have, but now totally different, for having an affair. There's certain levels and certain things, certain ethics, morals, values, standards of things that you just don't do, right? But then there's certain things that you have to do because it's a part of you. And if you hold these ethics, if you hold these values, you have to live them. And it doesn't matter what happens outside of you. It's how you're going to react on the inside of you that makes life easier, and that you can go ahead and do these things and it feels so good. I'm feels so good. Right?
Leslie, we're products of two things. Our genetics, can't change it. We're stuck with it. You can eat better. You can get the right tests and kind of know what you're up against, but you own that. And our environment. And, we're old enough, if you ever remember that movie Trading Places with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd. There's a lot in that movie.
There's a lot.
And so when all they did was change the two guys' environments. So the guy that had everything turned into a common thief on the street, and the common thief on the street turned into one of the better commodities brokers in all of Chicago. All they did was change the environment. Change your environment. If you have a toxic environment, you should expect toxicity and lack of growth. It's like bad soil. If you have bad soil, if you have a planter box and you have bad soil and nothing that you put in it thrives, do you pour more soil on top of it, or do you throw all the soil out and start over? You got to clean it out.
Right.
You've got to clean it out. You can't piece and part it. You have got to clean it out. Clean up your environment.
Right.
And we dictate our environment. I do twice a year now because I've put myself in a situation where I can't. When it gets really cold in Montana, I go to Arizona. When it gets really hot in Arizona, I come to Montana. That's my environment. It kind of makes me happy.
I think it's great.
Healthy, right?
It's amazing, and it's so true. It's so true. You do have to, and I think that part of changing the environment, right? We can change our environments, but remember, there's that saying: wherever you go, you take yourself with you. there you'll be, right? Wherever you go, there you'll be. So there's obviously something within ourselves that needs to change. So I think that as we're looking for these new environments, right, we're cleaning out things that don't fit. This is what was really good for me, because when I started going into this whole thing, when I had no idea, right, total reset on my life, my therapist asked me, Leslie, who are you and why are you here? I had no idea, Dave. I had no idea. I had no idea who I was. I had no idea why I was here, and I did not want to live. I didn't. I just kept asking, God, you're not paying attention to me. I don't even know why the hell I'm here. I'm 0.5%. I shouldn't be here, but why am I here? What the hell's the deal, right? I just didn't even freaking know. But then God put me in this little space and isolated me, and He said, now we're going to do work. Now you're going to do work. Now you're going to do work. And that's when I had the ability to find out who I was, on the ins from in here, right? Because I couldn't think my way through anything. All I could do was try to figure out what my body was telling me. What is my body telling me? Because physically, your body tells you everything, right? Your thoughts, if they're shitty, your body's going to be sick. If your body's healthy, your thoughts are going to be healthy. This is amazing. This is creative, but you've got to have a healthy body. You've got to take care of your physical body because it talks to us. You know that because of the illnesses that you see and everything else. But I swear to God, Dave, what saved my life, and I can totally, is trying to figure out what the hell my body was trying to tell me and make sense out of it in here. And nothing on the exterior, because nobody was there anymore, right? I had to look at these sheets of paper, and it said, this is happy, this is sad, this is angry. And there were pages of emotions that I had to read through and really study. What does this mean? What does that mean? And I had to put my head, my thoughts, or whatever I was feeling into a certain thought so that the two felt good. So that, oh, that's what that is. I had to put the two together. This feeling is the feeling of happiness. This feeling is a feeling of sadness. This feeling is uncomfortable. It's anxiety. It's fear. It's whatever. I mean, I had to learn that. But I did it by myself. And I'll tell you another thing. It was the first person I dated after all this happened. And he had narcissistic tendencies. I'm going to admit it. I think that because of his narcissistic tendencies and the crappy way that he could just push and drive me, right? I think that I have to thank him now. He was such an asshole then, but he was such a driving force for me. It just propelled me through it. And I thought, you know what? You're not going to treat me like that, because you're exactly why God hit that reset button on my life. And now I'm going to choose no. I'm going to choose differently. So that's so important. So, you're a genius, Dave. Genius.
I mean, that's great that you saw the narcissist and did a whole podcast on that the other day about narcissism, narcissist whisperer, because there's a lot of it out there.
But see, and that's something else that I think is interesting, because the more and more that people are looking outside for their answers in here, they're trying to fit into all this stuff and be perfect for everything. They're screwed. You're screwed if you try to dictate who you are and determine who you are by what's on the outside of you. You're a mess. You are a mess, my friend.
And there's a lot of people out there. Well, so let's talk foundationally about what that's really about. There's really no true savior than the Lord Jesus Christ. And everybody wants to read a book, Leslie. Everybody wants to read a book. If you want true fulfillment, if you want true internal peace.
Say that again, the first part.
I said there's no true savior other than the Lord Jesus Christ with these things.
Okay.
A new boat and a new set of skis and a new golf club and none of that works. What works is having your conversation and your relationship with God at a level that you can turn a lot of this stuff over to him and let him handle it, because he's got the stick anyway. You can't take it away from him. You can never, ever, ever take the steering wheel away. So that's number one. Number two is everybody wants to read the book that says the 9 habits of 5 hows and the 7 keys to whatever. They want to read that book. The 7 keys to internal. and they want to go to the last page. They want to pull that page out of the book that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They want to put it on the wall and go, I'm doing these 7 things. I must be happy. There's only one book. It's been around forever. It's been a bestseller since it was written. It hasn't been modified. And it's a book full of stories about a journey of a man who was trying to teach us all how to live our lives in a way and to believe in the Lord God Almighty at a level that makes the people around us better, that lets us be giving and caring, and it lets us have internal peace. The only place that you can find internal peace is through the Lord Jesus Christ, period, dot. It's the only place. Because if you're trying to fill your cup, if you're trying to fill your... Are you familiar, the pastor gave a sermon about, are you familiar with the term sine? So sine cera means without wax, but it's the root word to sincere, the word sincere. And the reason it means without wax, sine cera means without wax, is back in the biblical times, they used to have kilns, and they would make clay pots, for you to hold your water and things in. And every pot that's ever comes out of a kiln has imperfections in it, has cracks. And every one's different, has different cracks and those kind of things. They used to fill those cracks full of wax. And then they would put the veneer over the top of them, and then they would sell them. And then the people that would buy them would take. So the practice when you went to the market was to hold up the pot to the sunlight to see if you could see through the cracks, because if it had wax in it, you could see it. If it didn't and was filled with solid material, it was sine cera, without wax, which meant that it was a good pot. Well, we all have cracks. What do we fill them with? What do we fill them with? Alcohol? Sex? Drugs? Ski boats? Airplanes? I mean, we all want to enjoy ourselves, and there's a lot out there in life that God's put in front of us for us to enjoy. But if you got a crack, you got to fill it. In Japan, they fill it full of gold. They fill the cracks to the gold. And so every pot
There's a
has its
story
own signature.
about about the potter that was in, and he went to his workhouse or his shop, and all of his pots were broken, and but nobody was buying them anymore, right? Nobody was buying the pots because nobody needed them. But he started filling those cracks. He put them all together with gold, glued them together with gold. Yeah, there's a story about that.
There is. And so what are you filling your cracks with? No matter what they are. Your emotional cracks, your life cracks. What are you filling your cracks with? Find something solid to fill them with. That's the right team. That's the right belief. That's the right relationships to include with God. All of those things matter. This isn't a podcast about religion. And there's people that will tell me, Dave, there is no God. I've had probably the highest functioning narcissist that I ever knew in my life. I worked for him. And he asked me one day a question, and I said, these are the kind of things you have to turn over to God. And without even flinching, he looked at me and he said, there is no.
That's interesting, because the guy that I was dating, I listened to Christian music, and because that helped me heal, and he was like so against it. I thought, you quit listening to that. Why do you listen to that? He took that aspect and really tried to change that or take that away from me in some way. That's right. Interesting.
It scares them. Narcissists, it scares them. If you have the power of God in you, then they can't control you, because that's your foundation.
Right.
Narcissists prey off of people that have.
Yeah, because the more we got to know each other, and the further along the relationship got, and the more more solid, or the more foundation that I could solidify who I was, the relationship parted.
And he probably left naturally. When found an easier prey.
Yes, he did.
Sure. And he probably told you all the things that were wrong with you and why he was leaving.
Yes, he did.
Yep. And then he boogied. And actually, the thing was that you were impenetrable. He wasn't getting the food from you that he needed.
I remember him saying to me one day, he said, you know what my dad said about you, Leslie? And I said, what's that? And he said, there is not a mean bone in that girl's body, and we just don't think she's right for you. That's what he's telling me. It was like, my dad said there is not a mean bone in her body, and we just don't think she's right for you. Wow, how could you and he made it look like there was something wrong with me.
I would have taken that. I'd say, I'd take that. Have a nice day.
Well, at first I was like, okay, well, if there's not, then what the hell is wrong with me, right? But it wasn't that there was anything, and that's what I'm talking about. We have to stop looking at the outside to say, because I'm not fitting in with you, you're not choosing me, there's something wrong with me, right? But there wasn't anything wrong with me. Because if I would have let that think it, then I would have felt within myself, there's something wrong with me, there's something wrong with me. But
Why do you think people find fault in other people? From afar, through assumption,
to either
based on their hair
relate
color, their
to
clothes.
or to feel better than, I don't know.
Yeah, it's to assuage some insecurity that they have about themselves.
Yeah.
And so you have to be careful, because if you listen, you've really, really got to listen. So you talked about a couple things, your body. Listening to your body. Let me give you an example. When I got into this endeavor, this revenue generating endeavor, right? Because I set it up as a business. So, what you do is worth something, right? Well, I don't think so. I think that you can give. I think you can give freely. But between social media, the things that you're involved, and this is fairly recent. If I opened up my LinkedIn right now and I saw something from somebody that it makes my heart rate go up, makes that funny, gives me an emotion that's not a thought, that's not healthy, I unfollow them.
You have to.
But think about how hard that is. People are like, well, gosh, what am I going to do? Unfollow the 2,000 people or the 200 people or the 10 people? If I literally or figuratively unfollow people, then I won't have anything. That's wrong.
That's right.
That's wrong.
That's right.
Because there's plenty of, for every 2,000 followers that you unfollow, there's 2,000 that you should be following. But you got to find them.
You have to clear things out in order to put more in. You can't have this vessel, and this is where it takes those layers, like you're healing these layers. You have to get rid of what no longer serves you so that you have space. It's like you said, you have to take the trash out. Then you have to sit in, and when you sit in that aloneness, when there's nobody around you, when there's no people, nothing, when you just sit in solitary. And I think that was one of the most beautiful things for me, was not having anybody around me, right? I did my yard work, I took care of my house, I did crafty things, I did things that made me feel good. I built inside of me something that said, I'm worthy, and these are the things that I can do, and I can whatever it is. But you're right, that is where you just get rid of the crap that doesn't feel good. But one of the things that I think is interesting when you bring up spirituality is the fact that, spirituality to me is your relationship with your divine creator, right? They can't talk to us in words. And our brains are so freaking creative that they talk to us through our physical senses, through our bodies. Like if you get these tingles in your body, that's them. Because I just know that you're gonna feel it. You'll feel it. But I can't do it logically because I get so creative. Sometimes I can screw myself, right? Most often I do when I start thinking about stuff. I have to feel my way through things. And sometimes, there's that place where you feel your way through stuff. And that's the healing process to me, is like sometimes people just really hurt you. They really hurt you. And you have to figure out a way to forgive them, right? That's the process. I had to forgive them, and I had to forgive myself, really forgive myself, because forgiving myself allowed that forgiveness for them automatic. And once that transpires, all that stuff just starts fading away. It's when we hold on to those parts that of the frustration, the anger, the resentment, all that stuff. But you were saying, when I see these people and I get that feeling, right? You get rid of them. That's because you're being guided from the inside out to get rid of this stuff, because it's not going to serve you. It's the same as our bodies. That's our body telling us what to do.
Why do we talk ourselves out of it? Do you know 9 out of every 10 women that are sexually assaulted, their body told them to flee, to get away.
Yeah, that's true.
Somewhere in their mind, they talked themselves out of it.
That's true.
And they stayed in the situation. It's like a bad horror movie where the ghost says, get out, and everybody stays in the house, and you're like, the thing said, get out of the house, right? It would be a very short movie if they did that. the common sense. Why do we ignore that?
Because I think that in today's, honest to God, I think in today's society, we allow our outer influences, like look at TV, look at social media, look at
Exactly.
everything. It's like a 4 to 5 second attention span, right? People are flipping through stuff and it's 4 to 5 seconds. And I'll tell you what, when my mind is making me crazy, when I am spiraling down that rabbit hole in Alice in Wonderland into the negative thinking, I will intentionally use a show, usually Hallmark, some sort of love show or whatever, some sort of feel-good movie, to just distract my mind, because I can get so much momentum on that spiral that I just cause myself anxiety and I can spiral out of control, right? But if I stop and I use something else to distract my mind, but it has to take me in the direction that I need it to. And if you're scrolling through social media and it's taking you in a direction that you don't want to go, or if you're watching a movie on TV that's not benefiting you, you're just going to keep going down that thing. And that's interesting, Dave, because I remember when I was healing, I stopped watching TV. I really paid attention to the things that I watched, that I listened to, that I ate, that I touched. I mean, I paid attention. My 5 physical senses they were like my lifeline, right? Because they were my lifeline. I had to pay so much attention to them. And to try to figure out that physical aspect of us, it can be kind of hard, right? If you're allowing all this out here and you're not able to listen, because this is quiet. This is nurturing. This is loving. This is feel good, right? This is feel good. That's not feel good. That's experiences challenge to make choices and decisions of how you want that out there to look like to affect this in here. Does that make sense?
Do you know one thing that narcissists are good at? This is where this is how they can become so good at preying on others. Narcissists don't care what anybody thinks. They don't care. They'll put clothes on. They'll go out in the community, and somebody will go, "Gosh, look, why is he dressed that way?" He or she doesn't care.
You don't think that
They
they
don't
have
care.
like self? Because to me, it was like the guy that I was
Nope.
dating. To me, it was like he was so, I don't know. It was like he just had
They
to
love
look perfect.
themselves. Well, right. They love themselves, and they have to look perfect. The reason they have to look perfect is because they can't give anybody else an excuse to come back at them. So if you're in tip-top physical shape and you look perfect and you got the $2,000 suit and all of that stuff, then you can walk around telling people, oh, your makeup looks terrible today, or oh, you gained a couple of pounds, or you should get in the gym, or you shouldn't eat that, or that's unhealthy. It's all that type of stuff. But they don't care about what people think. They don't care about people. They have no empathy. Their empathy is completely, absolutely gone. They have no way to separate themselves from themselves and put themselves in somebody else's shoes and try to build at least a little bit of empathy. And quite frankly, they look at empathy as weakness. And quite frankly, people that are empaths like me spend way too much time worrying about what other people think.
Right.
And so you make decisions based on this. You put this extra equation into the decision instead of going, this is how I feel, and I'm going to hit the unfollow button.
Right.
10 years ago, I'd have went, man, if I hit the unfollow button, do they know if I hit the unfollow button? I can't care, because the only conversation to be had, if somebody goes, you unfollowed me on LinkedIn. Yeah, because you put this post out and it affected me physically, which is not good for what I'm trying to do. So I'm unfollowing you. I don't disrespect you. I hope that you have great interactions based on your passions, but it's not for me.
Right.
And so I get to choose what I consume, right? We get to choose what we consume.
Exactly.
You want to go have a Big Mac? You can drive down and have a You want to go buy some lettuce and have a salad? We can have a salad.
So let's get back to where we were, because this is like
Sure.
intense. One of the things I want to get out, one of the things I wanted to really, one of the key points that I wanted to address with you, I'd like to just shift gears for just a minute, because I think this is important to me to know. You know what, David, how long I mean, I don't know much about the military and the military branches and all this other stuff, but do they all train to go, these people to go into the service? How long do they take to train them to go into the service?
It depends on which branch you go in, and it depends on what you call training, because you don't stop training.
Yeah, but
You
don't they
train to the
prepare
last day.
them before they? Isn't there a
No,
stage like boot camp or whatever? I don't know.
yeah, I mean, yeah, basic training. Basic training, they all have different lengths. Some are getting longer. They all have different lengths, and the training's just laid out because they have certain objectives that they want to accomplish. So if you look at the Army and the Marine Corps, their training's a little longer because they do extra stuff with weapons. I mean, those are the foot soldiers, and so they do extra. You look at the Air Force and the Navy. The basic training might be a little bit shorter. All the core things are the same. Might be a little bit shorter because the majority of the stuff that we need to know, we need to be out in the field doing. We don't need to, we don't need to be in a basic training mode. We need our technical training. We need to move on and go. So the Navy, somewhat similar. So they're all a little bit different, but the approach to it is, you'll hear all the cliche things, break you down, build you up, all those type of things. Really what they're doing is they're indoctrinating you, right? They're teaching you the way of the society that you're going to live in. If you don't think that the military is a separate society, then you don't understand the military. So
God is just such a blessing, Dave, because I'm so glad you said that. Because here's my next, now, I knew that people would go into boot camp when I was younger. I think that my best friend's brother went for like 6 weeks, right? And then he came home, and then he went off to wherever he was being stationed. He was in the Army. So let's say 6 to 12 months, or 6 to 12 weeks that they train you, right? Basic training, 6 to 12 on average, right? When you're completed, when you're done serving your time, or you're ready to go home, right? For whatever reason, how much training do they give you for that? Didn't you just say to me that, Leslie, you're kind of going into a different, what did you say? To a different life or
society, it's a whole
society?
different society.
Right. So if you're going from this, especially these 19-year-old kids, right? When you're going from one society, social freedom society, into where somebody tells you what to do constantly, but you have to be trained to be in that society, why aren't they training? Why isn't there some sort of adjusting period or training to bring them back? And if they did have this, wouldn't that really solve a lot of the homelessness, the PTSD, the dysregulation? Because if rather you're in for 5 years or you're in for 30 years, there's a shift that has to happen. And if you had to shift to go into it, I think that there should be some sort of a mandatory training to bring you out of it, because especially when you go in for if you're 19, I mean, you're still in such an impressionable age. You, male brains don't even, I think, fully develop until they're 24, 23, 24,
That's
25.
25.
So shouldn't that be something that should be looked at? Shouldn't that be something implemented? I mean, these kids they come out with missing limbs, or they've been shot, or they watch people die. I mean, that's some serious shit. That is some serious stuff to experience. But they just send them home on an airplane with their little suitcase and say, "Thanks for your service." I think it's crap. I think
Well,
I think something needs to, and I just think something needs to be done. And if they had that somehow, it's just, I think that it should be mandatory. I think that it's something that is massively required, and depending on it, I don't think it should be, say, you can only be in this transitionary period from there for 6 to 12 weeks. I think that they should have as long as they damn well need, right? Depending on how long you serve. 30 years, you've seen a lot of stuff.
let me give you an example of something that was a phenomenon in our society that people got frustrated, because this is no different than coming out as a veteran. If you went for a job interview tomorrow and you were in a wheelchair and you were deaf and I wanted to hire you, I would already know what I needed to tell the staff, what the elevators needed to look like, what the bathrooms needed to look like, what the staircases need to look like, where I needed a ramp. if there was carpet or not, where you were going to sit, where, and how I was going to help you with your hearing stuff and all those kind of things. Do you think that I know all of that stuff because out of the goodness of my heart as your employer, I want to make sure that you're accommodated because you're in a wheelchair?
Yeah,
No.
maybe. Or is
No,
it
there's a
you
law
or
called the American Disabilities Act that says if I don't do this, I'll either go to jail or I'll have heavy fines and those kind of things. Because back in the day, before the American Disabilities Act existed, nobody put ramps on their buildings. Nobody put those little bumps at every crosswalk in every city in America. Nobody made sure elevators were wide enough that you could get in them with a wheelchair and turn around. Nobody did any of that stuff until we made it mandatory. The veteran phenomenon is hard. You'll hear a lot of employers say, well, we hire a lot of veterans. Really? Well, why do 50% of veterans leave their job in their first year and 65% and as high as 80 are gone in 2 years? Because there's no environment, Leslie. Because people say reassimilate. They don't have any appreciation for all the things that I just described, the microwave phenomenon. They don't have any appreciation for that. I did a presentation here in town to some senior leaders. And quite frankly, I could have done better with the presentation, and I got gaslit, right? I got all this feedback. Well, you could have done this and you could have done that. And they missed the forest for the trees, right?
Right.
What it was you have a huge population, they have a need. This is a call to action for you to do something. And nobody did anything other than tell me how my presentation could have been better.
Right.
It amazes me. And this is why I'm offering everything that I do now, I just offer for free. I don't want to be in business relationships and I don't want to sign contracts. If you want me to come and talk to you and you have respect for me and you think that I can contribute, sure, I'll pop in and we'll have a chat. You want me to come and give a motivational speech, I'll do that for you. You want me to be on your life team? You want me to mentor you? I do that every day. I did probably 30 minutes of that just before we got on here today. And it's all about making other people successful and helping them navigate their bumps and bruises. I'll do all that, and I'll do it for free, and I'll just give. The first book I wrote was giving back, and I just think it's vitally important to do that. So we need society to either inherently and through natural motivation give back to veterans in a way that's meaningful, not just saying thank you for your service, or we need to legislate it and we need to make it mandatory. But one way or another, you're right, it needs to be done.
It does. It does need to be done. And I think that what's interesting is it's not just the military people, but we could just really find gratitude and appreciation for the struggles that we go through, for the understanding that other people go through struggles as well too, right? Finding appreciation in the fact that they're still here, just like you're still here. Appreciate the fact that they are where they're at, and that you're going to have empathy for that, right? Because it all trickles down. When you look at it, when you can change your perspective, it will all trickle down. But yeah, this whole thing about the military, I mean, I get so angry because and now that this political stuff is coming out, and I don't want to talk politics, I just want to use this as an example. As we look at the things that are happening in our government and that are being exposed, and I look at the minimal amounts of money that these kids are paid to go in to protect our country, while these people are stealing. I mean, the military people, these families, they're losing their homes, they're losing their marriages, they're losing their families, their lives are destroyed because of the insecurities and cheating and whatever else goes on, right? It's just such an unstable thing, and it's so thankless. So thankless. It really pisses me off. It makes me so angry. It's like, do you realize not just what these people are doing for us, but realize what we all are going through, we're all trying to put our own pieces together to our own puzzle, right? And we need to really understand that we're all on different pages. We're all going to have our ups and downs. If I have them, you're going to have them. If you have them, we're all going to have it. We're all growing and learning on different levels. But if we could just find some sort of that common ground, that respect or appreciation, that we're all in this together, And if it's going to work, if it's really truly going to work, we have to really find that inner guidance.
Would you call Jesus a leader?
Yes. I take that back because I look at him as he set an example, and the example that he set was such a profound leadership, right? That one of the things is Jesus. Are you watching The Promise or Chosen?
I started. I haven't.
Oh, well, in The Chosen,
it's not that I won't. It's just I haven't finished. So.
Right. In The Chosen, there's a part where Jesus is talking to his mother, and it's right before the crucifixion and such, right? Right before the part where he enters in on the donkey or whatever. But he's talking to his mother, and he said, they don't get it. They just don't get it, mother. And he's talking about his disciples. They just don't get it. They don't understand what I'm trying to teach them. And that was very profound for me because it's like he was a leader, yes, but he was trying to lead by example. I don't think that he never ever told anybody, you have to do it this way. He always gave them a choice, right?
Here's what I think was magical about Jesus. He met people where they were at.
Right.
To include washing their feet. And that was okay. Nobody washes anybody's feet anymore. And nobody meets anybody where they're at. They assign where they're at based on the size of their bank account, the title that they have of their job, where they're at in some corporate thing, where they have access. And the only way to get access is to have money.
Right.
So that doesn't mean that the right people in this country or in this world are in the right places. Because the true leaders that will meet people where they're at are usually beat down.
Yeah.
Goody two shoes, all the things that you can be called because of a populist take. Boy, we've got it all today. I got guys mowing the lawn right outside the window. And I got the dog sitting.
We get
here's we've talked about a lot.
Right. We're gonna have more recordings, I hope, because.
Yeah, absolutely. But here's what I'll give you is. This all starts with yourself.
Right.
It all starts with you. 99 out of 100 things that you face in life, you were the one that swung the bat when the ball went through the... Don't gaslight people. Don't deflect. Own it. Own it. Whatever it is, own it. And God is all forgiving. Even your husband and his adultery.
Yeah.
You may not forgive him, but God has.
Oh, I had to forgive him because I've learned that in order to have this, what I have with the Holy Divine, you have to have purity, mind, body, and soul. And if you have purity, mind, body, and soul, that inner peace, they will guide you. It's like they just give you these wings, right? And you just fly through stuff. But if you don't have that inner peace, you kind of stumble through it, right? Yeah. So if you want your wings, you got to stay. But that's there for everybody. You have it. You have that guidance. But not a lot of people do.
Perfect guy.
We're not supposed to be.
My compass gets goofed up, and so you have to keep doing work. Yeah, so there's no easy way out, Leslie. You got to do the work, but you know what? You can structure your life in a way that has the right people in it. And you're not defined by the amount of friends you have, but you are defined by how you make yourself feel. Let me say that again. You're defined by how you make yourself feel. When you have emotions, you probably normally have control of that. Unless tomorrow some guy pulls a gun out, sticks it to your forehead, and says, give me a lighter. That invokes a lot of feelings, and you probably didn't have a lot of control of that. Unless you were an idiot in a situation you shouldn't have. But for the most part, you didn't have a lot of control of that. Most of the things we have control of. We have control of our environment and what we consume. And that's all consumption. That's just not what we put in our mouths. It's what we consume, what we read, what we see, what we hear, what we expose ourselves, all of that. We have control over all of that.
Yeah.
So don't be gaslighting. Own it. Just start with you. Yeah, there might be contributing factors, but that might just be the straw that breaks the camel's back to make you redefine your life team and to do some firing and some hiring.
Yeah, that
Run your life like a CEO, and be a profitable company, and I think it'll make you better. I turned 60 in a few days,
when's
2
your
months,
birthday?
the 9th of July. So,
This is May.
yeah.
Oh, I thought you said in a few days because on the
Yeah,
17th.
no, I amended it. I said a few days, and it's really 2 months, 60 days, whatever.
I was going to say,
So,
I'm going to be 58 on the 17th of May. So that's really kind of,
there you go.
that's interesting.
Good. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
But I've really kind of mapped things out and had a long talk with myself and look at other people, and I watch intently how other people navigate.
Yeah.
You know when you hit 60, Leslie, you got about 20 years. You got about 20 years. You got about 20 years.
You know, that's
I might
funny
live
because
I might live to be my mother's age, which is 89, but I will tell you, her quality of life probably ended at 81.
I was actually thinking about that the other day. I was thinking, Leslie, if you live to 97, and that's like luck, right? Nobody's in my family's ever lived like that. But I was thinking, you only have like 30-something years left. Yeah.
And that's not to scare people or to make. But the thing is what are you going to do with it?
Right.
Some people think the difference between heaven and hell is what people think of you after you leave this earth. My grandfather used to say that. Not that he wasn't a God-fearing man, but he would say. So you've got an opportunity to leave a legacy. And you can be like your boyfriend that you have and be a narcissist and leave a legacy of disrespect and hurt feelings and hurt people. Or you can leave a legacy of giving back,
right,
and have people just be in a better place. Somebody wrote me, one of my proteges wrote me today and said, "Thanks for being a cheerleader for me, because I don't."
That's awesome.
Well, I'm fine filling the role because I believe in her and she deserves it. And I'm fine filling the role. I just don't cheerlead to be cheerleading. But, people need to hear what's good about them.
Right.
We're really quick to tell people what's wrong with them, but we're not very good at telling people what's good.
Yeah.
So I'll leave you with that. How's that?
Say it again. Your final words, Dave. Tell me your final words on this podcast, because I know that you and I are going to. I just know that we're going to build from this, because I think this was a really great conversation. I think that it needs to be expanded on. But there's so much intellect and so much wisdom that you put into every word you say, and you think a lot about things before you open your mouth. And I think that's interesting. Not a lot of people do.
Well, here's what I'll give everybody as a precursor to our next conversation. It begins and ends with you. All things begin and end with you. Stop looking for excuses. Own the good, own the bad, own them. You'll take a quantum leap into internal peace that you've never felt ever before.
I think those are very good words. Those are very incredibly wise words for people to really think about. Well, Mr. Nordell, I am so pleased for this conversation. There's a lot here to think about, and I think that there's going to be a lot of comments, and I think that it's going to change a lot of people's perspectives, or at least spark an interest to start looking at things in a different way.
Sure.
Well, thank you again, and I hope that you have a really great day, and we'll talk again soon.
You bet. You're the best. Thanks, Leslie. Bye.
Hello, this is Leslie Paziak. I want to thank you for watching this video. And if you found the information in this video useful, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel so you can receive notifications when new content is released. To learn more about how you can begin putting these principles into your life, living from the inside out, please visit my website at lesliepaziak.com. Thank you again for watching. I look forward to sharing more quality videos on this channel in the near future, and I hope to see you there.